what I thought I'd do first of all is just talk a bit about myself, because you have an appalling grant application type biography of me there in the program. I'm very embarrassed about it. Back the lies, of course. But just in terms of how I became involved in dance and my subsequent desire, if you like, to do this piece and do this type of work. I suppose, like a lot of us, I had quite this sort of strict classical upbringing when it came to music, I was never really quite satisfied by that, and was always sort of looking for different things to do with that. And I sort of came upon dance quite by accident, in that there was a course in Dublin for choreographers and composers, that was organised by a dance organisation. And they were looking for participants, so I sort of decided to do that, and subsequently then began working with dance companies in Ireland. And just to give you some idea of what the actual dance situation is like in Ireland, if you think you have problems, it's nothing at all like what is happening. I mean, basically Ireland has 2 companies that are funded, and the rest then would do sort of small projects from time to time. So it's quite a sort of bare plate when it comes to looking for collaborations and looking to get involved in that area. But the company that I did start working for initially were quite a small community-based company in a town called Wexford, which is on the southeast corner of Ireland. And it's a town of about 10,000 people, so it's quite small. And because they had so few dancers, and it's worth remembering that their move to actually employ a musician was quite a statement to make. I mean, it would be an awful lot easier for them to have employed another dancer, but quite admirably they chose to employ a musician. So basically at that stage, because it was such a small company, I invariably found myself on stage in pieces, choreographed or not choreographed into them. I mean, sometimes just for another presence on stage, and then other times just having a very basic movement role. So I sort of wanted to develop that in some way, and being a clarinet player and knowing about Harlequin as a piece, I thought, well, there you go. So I applied to the Irish Arts Council for funding for it, and lo and behold, got it. Not all of what I asked for, of course, but so there I was, and 45-minute piece, music and dancing, that I had to do now. You know, I got the money for it, so so I had to do it. So 13 weeks and 1 stomach ulcer later, I did the first performance. I mean, literally 13 weeks full time studying the piece. I mean, first of all, every single note in the piece is notated. I mean, there's nothing improvised. And on top of that, getting used to moving and playing at the same time, and also trying to remember the choreography as well, took up every minute of those 13 weeks. And it sounds extremely extravagant, but in actual fact it was quite a push to the end to get it all done. The piece itself dates from the 70s, and it was the first of a series of pieces by Stockhausen where he sought to involve the musicians on stage as performers, as opposed to as musicians sitting there playing the music. And the way he uses movement is very, very basic and naive, to say the least. And what he has done in Harlequin subsequently has not been developed one bit. You know, it's the same use of movement and music together. But Harlequin was the very first piece that he did for Susie Stevens. And the piece itself is, as I said, every note is written out, but there's large chunks of the movement that are not notated, and there's sections that are, but extremely, strangely, like, there's some classics. Eyes closed, jerk humorously further with the shoulders. Tap on the floor with pointed toe of loosely bent left these things are just interrelated in the music from time to time. So there's huge sections where he doesn't notate anything at all, and then he'll suddenly say, move to the right. I mean, what obviously happened was he didn't actually write this piece, sit down and write this piece, and then give the score to his students and say, learn that. What he actually did is he set the movement on her quite in a way that a choreographer would work with a dancer. So what happened was that whenever he saw something that he liked, he said, oh, I like that, I'll write it down in the score. But of course, if he put it down in the score, then he wanted it to stand out. But it can only stand out insofar as what comes before it and what comes after it is suitably different for it to stand out. Like if you're spending 3 minutes turning to the right, and then he suddenly says, turn to the right, I mean, nobody will notice any difference. And I mean, I just think these are such basic things, and this guy doesn't. But anyway, I mean, but in that, I mean, I worked with a choreographer who sort of had a lot of problems with it because, first of all, because I'm probably one of the most hopelessly uncoordinated people imaginable. Secondly, I have a clarinet in my mouth, so But she was great. She was very patient, and we worked through a lot of things just to get me comfortable moving with the instrument and that. She also found the score very difficult to deal with insofar as it was so strict. Like, if there was a good idea that needed an extra 2 bars, you couldn't do it. I mean, you could change the music, but I really sort of set myself the task of trying to be as faithful to what was there as possible and seeing if it did work, So that was, I worked then with a lighting designer as well. I mean, Stockhausen gives his own lighting design, which is basically a follow spot all the way through the piece. I mean, it's just such a 70s concept. It's unbelievable. But I worked with a lighting designer who did nice things with sort of diagonals on the floor as the patchwork thing of the Harlequin. So that was that, and then I did the piece. Now, it's really interesting to get reactions from people as to what they actually think of the piece, because it's extremely. I have a review here of a performance that I did, and it's by the music critic in the Irish Times, and just talking about the piece, just to give you some idea of what he says. Stockhausen's stylized and rather mechanistic way with movement will be familiar to anyone who was at last year's Dublin concert under the direction of the composer. That was a concert that Stockhausen did. Did a lot of these subsequent pieces with Suzanne Stevens and Marcus Stockhausen, and the contingent that he has that follows him around with basic music. He said, in Harlequin, the same sort of patterns are encountered with the patchwork-clad performer, for instance, often matching melodic highs and lows by raising and lowering his instrument. If this particular vein in Stockhausen's work has a striking feature, it is this arch super naivety in which it has been devised. One can take it for granted that its construction is highly systemized and probably with more than a touch of intellectual brilliance. And that really sums it up. I mean, conceptually, Stockhausen has one tune that he bludgeons to death for 45 minutes. But it's totally academic concept that he has, and if you were to look at it like that, it is remarkable. But you have to sit there and listen to it, But I think he actually gets away with an awful lot insofar that there's the performer on stage, the performance sort of carries it. And also, I find that because there's a single performer doing the movement and the music, an awful lot of the Mickey Mousing that is there, you get away with, because, and I wrote the thing for the journal, I think it's in there, but that sort of discussed that with regard to the aspect of impulse, and the impulse is behind the movement and the sound. Whereas in one performer, there's never a sort of perceivable one being the source of the other, but it's just one voice and one body moving together. So I think that the whole performance thing carries it quite a bit. And my total litmus test for any pieces I do is my mother, who has absolutely no musical background, You know, you'll ask her what she thought of the concert, and she said, I didn't like the conductor's haircut, you know, and that's she actually I mean, I was a bit wary of her coming along to the concert, but she really enjoyed it because of the whole performance aspect. Now, there is a program note that Stockhausen himself has, and I'll just read it out just before performing the piece. There's actually two program notes here, maybe I'll read out the two of them, or a bit of each. The traditional figure of Harlequin is reborn in a new form, a clarinet player. Harlequin is now completely a musician. Coming from the heights, he unwinds out of the spiral until, kneeling directly in front of the audience, he presents his entire melody. Then he winds upwards to the heights, again in the form of the spiral. And spirals feature an awful lot, both in this piece and in other Stockhausen pieces. And the original costume that he has are a collection of three colour spirals that go around the body and sewn onto a black costume. At the beginning, Harlequin is the dream messenger. He has 7 different characters that are all embodied in the one character. The dream messenger plays and dances in fast circular figures. Out of the circles grows a spiral which descends. Then Harlequin is a playful constructor. From the spiral, he allows a melody formed note by note. The melody expands down to the very low register, and there pulls itself together, becoming gradually slower and clearer. Harlequin comes very close and changes into an enamoured lyric. He enchants everyone with his melody, and, wait here, this bit. And those who listen very quietly at this moment will be able to sing this melody eternally in their dreams, and will be able to transform everything which is ugly into something beautiful. When Harlequin awakes, he takes his entire melody apart and becomes a very pedantic teacher. He writes his melody from beginning to end into the air. When he makes a mistake, he becomes angry. He does not stop until he has written everything into the air without a mistake. But he makes fun of himself a bit when he is teaching, and before we know it, he has already transformed himself into a roguish joker, who does nothing but make impudent jokes, and who sometimes even pulls small dirty tricks. He simply hits his clarinet to make it a bit shorter when the pitches are not too high enough for him. He trains his foot to count notes. He walks leaning against the wind, even when there is no wind at all, and several other things as well. Although Harlequin has always danced somewhat when he played, he now, while walking against the wind, transforms himself into a passionate dancer who becomes so infatuated in dancing that he forgets more and more often to play the notes, and thus his melody becomes more and more full of holes. When the melody consists of nothing but holes and has scarcely a note left, Harlequin remembers the small, fast, circular figures. In a large spiral, he climbs upwards and gradually continuing narrower, he transforms into a spinning spirit. Between the fast melodic chords, he throws out wild, long bird cries 12 times until he has dissolved the entire melody. Then comes the 13th bird cry, which is the highest of all. And that's the program note. The one thing I didn't mention is that another thing that he has the performer do is to tap out rhythms in your feet in counterpoint to what you're playing. That took an awful lot of work. I mean, it's not difficult to do ordinary type rhythms, but in the sort of tricky fingerings and the tricky rhythms that Stockhausen himself has, that took quite a lot of work. So, without further ado, Harlequin. Okay. So Angie. Max, just tell her that too. I'm just going to strip this off. now at the end just for any questions anyone might have, like why. So does anyone have any? I mean, I have a copy of the score if people want to pass it around and have a look at it. It's sort of in two parts. These are sort of working copies. Yeah.
How many times have you performed it?
5 now. 5 times. Yeah.
Who designed the costume?
This was actually a. Oh God! Look.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
That was designed.
It was actually a costume from
That was part of it.
from Whitefield Opera Festival, which is a local opera festival. That's not meant that.
Oh, that's not.
No.
Symbolism.
But it's one of the
clarinet or cheering from a mile away.
Those are the things that help my chance.
So, how do you, after working on it, doing it, performing it, how do you like it?
I don't particularly prefer it at this stage. Yeah, I mean, and the more I've lived with it, the more the faults have just, constantly gotten at me. I mean, it was a good starter. It sort of got me to a certain place, and now I really want to take that in lots of different directions. But no, I mean, I must say it's not. But I think it's not as bad as if I stood there and played for you. I mean,
Oh, yeah. That's interesting.
Have you done any other non or on-stage performing, for example, with dancer or dancers?
Yeah. Myself and a dancer in Ireland did a set of 3 pieces, which we called by 3, which were 3 pieces that we, 2 that we had made for us and another one that we made ourselves. But again, that was quite a while ago, and like my role was very, very much far less than now. Basically because I didn't go through all that stuff of, getting to this stage.
Also, I have an observation, and I think it's tied in with working in a large time frame. I think we're all accustomed to blocking out, for example, extraneous sounds in the environment. I didn't realize until about maybe 30, 35 minutes into this piece that I was also blocking out a visual. And that was your mirrored reflection in the floor because of the lighting. I suddenly saw your inversion, and for the rest of the piece, it was a fascinating new visual.
Yeah, that's another thing that I mentioned, sort of the diagonal thing, which was sort of following up on that. But what that also did was throw a really nice shadow on the back wall.
So I mean, the floor itself coming down from your
Right,
piece,
all right.
upside down.
Right. Oh, yeah. Mind you, most times that I have done that, I've done it in this kind of space. We've been in sort of a wooden floor, that small space, so that
Is Stockhausen's lighting instruction, is that actually in the score as far as the spotlight?
Yeah.
Have you performed it as indicated?
I've performed it as I've always done it with the spotlight, yeah, with the follow spot, but he also has, he's really into these little things, patterns on the floor, and he also has instructions for them, which I have ignored, and everyone does ignore. Yes.
Michael, I congratulate you on your clarinet technique, even the twists and the downs and on the sharp ones, because I used to be a clarinetist, and I know how hard it is to control. It's really excellent.
Thanks.
Very compelling, even with all the one-on-ones.
It's a bit dangerous, yeah. I mean, there were certain things that were sort of, that I deliberately didn't do in when I was making this that I have since. I mean, jumps were out, but I have sort of done sort of found safe ways of doing that. But there are all sorts of other things like just sort of getting down, going back up again, trying to sustain your sound, which is actually quite a difficult thing to do. Yeah.
Michael, you have a very new relationship with the clarinet and your work.
I have not particularly with the clarinet, just in terms of I mean, how to explain that? I do quite a lot of other work as well as performing. I mean, I do a lot of orchestral work and some chamber music and that, so that's always sort of chugging along. But I mean, once I do, I'm involved in a performance. That is a very, very difficult, very different state for me now after doing that.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, thing is, you're going from a stationary point to orchestra, to these gestural abstraction, and then back again. There's so many Californians. He uses work with the pianist and actually get up and move, music gesture, and then play. It's much more kind of approach to the
Right.
piano.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm wondering, I'm a little bit player as well, I think. I just imagine after something so both large and gestural that your relationship is somehow.
I have found it changed to a physical extent in that, I mean, the minute I started working on the piece, I mean, the first thing I did when I had to move my the instrument double was in the shoulders totally, and I am much more aware now of using my lower back, and I have found that has also helped my breathing in general, just sort of suddenly sort of discovering all these muscles that you sort of didn't, although you sort of were aware were there when you were blowing, but suddenly you feel them there when you were moving. So that did change, yeah. But I don't know. Maybe it has. I mean, I haven't really thought about it. So
I think the whole body-mind relationship
Mm.
with the instrument
Yeah.
has shifted. I mean, it has to have shifted. It works as a radical, something so radical different from traditional visualization.
I think what might have helped as well is the fact that I've done smaller things before this, so it wasn't such a total development. Yeah.
Has anybody else done with the whole
There,
lighting, cues?
I think Susie, I mean, there's only been 9 people who've done it all in all, ever. So, most of them have actually ignored the general lighting thing, but have kept the focus up. Yeah, they nearly all ignore the costumes as well, which are these spiral things. Some of them have gone for a, well, I mean, I only know 2 other people. One is an English guy who has sort of a patchwork costume like this, and the other is a Belgian guy who has these, like metal tubing, insulated tubing, that he has like Mitchell maps, all the way with spirals. Really nice.
It's fully choreographed as well.
Yeah, everybody who's done it has sort of worked on it with the choreographer. I mean, apart from anything else, you really need an outside eye to have a look at what you're doing, because you aren't aware of so many things. And it's also a very different thing for a musician, because suddenly, I sort of always find it funny looking at the musicians on stage when, choreographer has a great idea, let's put the musicians on stage, and they're there frozen and without them, like this. But it is a thing that musicians do shy away from. And it is, but it is a very different thing.
Because physically,
Yeah, yeah, it is. I mean, a solo wind piece for 45 minutes is bad enough. Having said that, it also is quite well paced, in that there are sections like the kneeling section where you do get breather, and that. So he does pace it out to a considerable extent quite well.
You indicated that you're ready to move on to other things now. And I was wondering what doing this piece, and how that affected it. You discovered certain things about it in one movement, and there are other things you're probably reacting to that you want to go away from. I'm just wondering what sorts of things you discovered from it, and how effective were you going?
One thing the thing that I did sort of discover is just this whole relationship between the movement and the sound. And what really intrigued me is just the notion that as a performer now, you are both a dancer and a musician. So, what intrigues me now is in a state of improvising, for example, to have the two. So, I'd be a better music improviser now than a movement improviser, obviously enough. But I'd really like to get to a state where the two are quite similar and are sort of the same facility to work on from that. And I really don't want to do another 45-minute piece where you have to learn every note. That would really, geez, it's so demanding. I mean, there just are sections and you're thinking, what note is next? And although it is extremely disciplined and it was good to do, I mean, I'm not going to do that again. But what I really would like to move into is more performance work with grouping and playing, especially using improvisation.
I think that's great insight. Just personally, the most evocative thing about the piece for me is, the tone of the clarinet, first of all, your physicality, your body, you playing while you move. And the other things as far as the overall direction of this piece and the notes, the actual notes, to me are not the most important.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's great that you've done it in a style by you performing in your game. Right. But this doesn't have to be the only way to do it.
Yeah.
Have you worked on any other, quote, music theater, Chicago or area or Globocar?
No, not any of those larger pieces. There is one cargo piece called At Town, which is for any of instrument. It's very old pieces, but not the, the sequenza is like combo one of the no, I haven't. And that is I have done some pieces by composers, Irish composers who have gone into that theatre, and that interests me as well. In the past few years.
Have you done a recital or a concert where you play other pieces, let's say a Mozart piece, and not moving, and then do this, it would be a wonderful contrast.
Yeah. Yeah, no, never. I think the thing about this piece is, another thing I discovered, all of us, I'm sure, the first thing when we started working with dance is how bloody hard they work compared to musicians, and I really discovered just how much you really need to prepare before going out there in terms of, warming up and all that. So to a certain extent that does restrict how you program it. And also it's just so exhausting that you just do it once. Yeah.
What have you programmed?
Nothing. Yeah, I've always done it as a piece of itself. Yeah.
Did you find anything anywhere where you said what inspired you to do this piece? I felt it was
It does, yeah. The whole notion of humor in it is very, what is there is very heavy-handed, all the stuff sticking the time between the legs and all that, and there are sections where I think he does mean it to be funny, and the English player who worked with me on it worked with Stockhausen, and that's something I'm going to do next year is go over and play it for him, because so few people do it, it's sort of expected of people to do that. And the other good thing about that is he sort of gives you his blessing, so when you're going to get a performance, get fired by theatre, it carries an awful lot of weight. But when Ian was talking to him, that was a thing. He does mean it to be funny at times, but and I think that he does intend it to be a Harlequin character, but just the way he goes about it is just very funny at times.
I don't know, but if you've ever seen Pete Fountain, for example,
Sorry?
Pete Fountain, his gesture is so characteristic of that whole licorice stick thing.
Yeah.
It is funny. And I think I don't know, I was kind of curious if presenting down where you got that idea, because it's just.
I would say it would be
ridiculous. It is sometimes.
Yeah.
You watch somebody doing that show-off clarinet thing, and the whole thing is to hit the high note.
Yeah.
It's what this
And it
thing's
doesn't
all
get it,
about.
so you try again.
Got a big band plays for 40 minutes, and then the guy hits the high note.
I would actually say that I wouldn't think that is where it's coming from. No, it's not that, and I would say it's far more worked out using differential calculus or something like that.
I don't know. This might be full of it.
Yeah. Well, maybe. Okay.
Right.